Hello and welcome to another episode of the Halftime Podcast. It's been a long time, but we are back and it is brought to you by halftimecuppa.com. My name is Danny Cook and I'm very pleased to be bringing you a sort of lockdown 2.0 version of this podcast. And we have a fantastic episode lined up for you with some really great guests today as well. So without further ado, let's introduce our amazing panel. We've got Marc Cribben. Hello, Marc.
Hello, how are you going?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Yeah, you keeping well?
Keeping well, yeah. Lockdown is a bit tough, but getting through it.
Perfect. Love to hear it. And joining Marc, we have Jonny Naidoo. How are you, Jonny?
I'm not too bad, Danny. How are you?
Yeah, good. All good here, thanks. All good here, thanks. Okay, so good place for us to start. We've got three different teams to discuss in this sort of opening segment, and today's episode is going to be slightly different to some of the other ones that we did sort of pre-lockdown. We've got a couple of topics to discuss. So the very first one is going to be our teams. So we're going to just reflect on the opening couple of games now for our respective teams. And before we begin, and I'm going to start with Jonny first. Before we begin on that, of course, you can catch up on any of the previous episodes of the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and on our website, halftimecuppa.com. Okay, so Jonny, take us away. Talk to us about QPR. How are QPR doing at this moment in time?
Yeah, it's sort of been, I think, business as usual at the start of the season. We've sort of, since relegation in 2015, we've been sitting in that sort of lower mid-table area, obviously following the EFL fine that we faced because of financial fair play, which I think, if my memory serves me correctly, we are pretty much close to paying off now. But I think given the outgoings we had with the Eze and Wells and Hugill all leaving the club, that was a substantial portion of our goals that were scored last season. I think we've made a relatively solid start. I think the defending still leaves a lot to be admired, but I don't know. I think it's been an interesting start of the season, but something I definitely would.
Yeah, but I think we kind of lost you a little bit towards the end there, but I genuinely get the gist in terms of losing that firepower and losing the likes of Hugill, those goals within QPR setup. You mentioned about the financial fair play sort of fine and you guys being close to paying it off. Do you think that'll have an effect on your season in terms of the rest of the season going forward, or do you think that once that's paid off, it's not going to sort of overshadow your season?
I think it's going to have the same impact as it's had over the last few years. I mean, the owners have started to realise that it's better to use players coming in through the academy, which I think is really something we didn't really do when we were in the. So I think it was important for the chairman and the owners, and of course that's Ferdinand, director of football, to get used to that, because we haven't been able to find any players, for big money for a long time, which puts us in a bit of a precarious position with regards to some of the other teams, of course, like Norwich, Watford, Bournemouth, who have a bit of money to spend. That does make it a bit more difficult for us to compete at the higher end of the Championship, but I think it sort of allows the club to become a bit more humble from where it's come from, with bringing players up through the youth system like Nico Hammerlein and Ilias Chair as well, who's come on leaps and bounds last season. So I think it's sort of, obviously you've got your downsides, but I think it's had quite a few positives for the club as well.
Yeah, and one thing with QPR in particular that I've kind of picked up on over the last couple of seasons is the academy graduates, the youth that you have coming through that, through your club. Is there any sort of hot prospects coming in, and maybe we could bring in Marc into this conversation as well as FM Wonder Kids Elias, should we say, Elias. So yeah, it'd be good to get Marc's thoughts on QPR's wonder kids coming through as well. So Jonny, do you want to just kick us off with that and just give us a sort of an insight as to who's coming up?
Yeah, well, one of the biggest issues I think we've had over the last couple of years has been the goalkeeping position. With Joe Lumley, he sort of came through the ranks. He started playing a lot more a couple of years back, probably the start of 2 seasons ago. He did play quite well. We had he had quite a few games for us, but he sort of started to tail off a bit in the fans, started to get on the back. So he's not really featured an awful lot sort of towards the end of last season, at the start of this season. We've got Seny Dieng, who started the last 6 games for the club. He's been, I think personally, he's been outstanding. Given he's sort of been thrown at the deep end, he hadn't made an appearance for the club before, so he's now started to come in and fill those boots, as it were, and he has done quite well. So he's definitely one to look out for. So we've got, as I mentioned, Ilias Chair. He sort of had to fill in for Eze's position, that number 10 role behind the striker. He has been outstanding the last few games. He has had his odd bad game, which obviously the team has anyway. I think he's done a really good job in sort of slotting in that position. He's very creative, very quick. He's got a good pass, and obviously he scored the equaliser yesterday against Watford. So there's definitely a good future for him there. And left back Nico Hammerleinen, Finnish international. He started against France in the friendly at the start of this international break for Finland. So they won 2-0, really impressive result for them. And has become a sort of permanent fixture in that team as well. He slots in there at left back. I'd say he's ahead of Lee Wallace, sort of more experienced player. Obviously played for Glasgow Rangers as well. But I think he's been absolutely outstanding. He came on at half time actually yesterday and really changed the game. Had a big part to play in the goal as well. So he's definitely another one to look out for.
Brilliant. So there's quite a few there. Marc, in terms of your FM exploits, have you in any of your saves maybe had any of the QPR players on your radar? Or
well, the only one recently, well, I suppose for FM20 would have been Eze, but obviously he's gone now to Crystal Palace. He's obviously done well as well. He's had a good start. The other player would have been, I think a player you've mentioned already is Bry Osayi-Samuel. I think them two would have been the only wonder kids in QPR system. I don't know too much about them now, to be honest with you. I would just know that they are the wonder kids at QPR. So I haven't seen them in real life. I've just seen their stats on Football Manager.
Yeah, so this is where it's quite interesting, because we're getting a blend of real life sort of experiences. So I appreciate that insight. Yeah. Let's very briefly talk about that game yesterday, Jonny, before we move on to Marc, and I want to find out his verdict from the Chelsea point of view. But yesterday's game, obviously you drew 1-1 with Watford. Good result, surely, in the grand scheme of things. Watford aside, pushing for promotion. What's your thoughts on that one, Jonny?
I wasn't sure what to expect. Of course, it was first game back from international break. These are sort of the games that we don't traditionally play well in. We played Watford, I believe, a couple of seasons ago in the FA Cup. Lost 1-0 while they were still in the Premier League. It's always been a bit of a rivalry there, so I wasn't sure what really realistically to expect from that one. But yeah, I thought it was a good result. Obviously went 1-0 down to Ben Wilmot at the first 3 minutes, so it made it difficult for us, which we have a habit of doing. But then Mark Warburton made the change at half time. He brought Hammerleinen on for Wallace. Took Macaulay Bonner as well, who's been outstanding so far, and Lyndon Dykes, obviously fresh from qualifying for the Euros for Scotland. And that changed the way of the game, the flow of the game, and we could, by the looks of the highlights that I watched, we could have easily won. With the Ilias Chair gets the equaliser 77th minute. A really good build-up play with Hammerleinen and Dykes. and a really good finish past Ben Foster. But we could have easily won, and this could sort of lead on to another topic we could move on to. But there was a very big penalty shout in the last 10 minutes for QPR. Corners swung in, and Watford defender has pulled down by the looks of it, Lennon Dykes. So incredibly, the referee gave a free kick to Watford. I'm not entirely sure what he'd seen, whether he was what he was looking at. Same with the linesman. Marc Warburton after the game said he has no words to describe refereeing sometimes, because we could have easily won the game, and that could have been our opportunity to do so. But yeah, I was impressed with the point. We've got Rotherham at home on Tuesday, and then the West London derby with Brentford at their new stadium on Friday. So we got some tough games coming up. There's no easy games in the league, but I was impressed with the point there.
No, certainly not. No, in terms of easy games, no easy games in this league. But that West London derby will be an interesting one. Interesting topic you raise, and I presume you're kind of going along the lines of VAR being sort of bled down and used maybe at a lower league level as well. That's a topic we can come on to. But for the time being anyway, we're going to move over. We're going to move up into the Premier League, which complete opposite end in terms of a team right at the top in terms of Chelsea. Marc, you've got to be feeling quite good with how they're doing at the moment, surely.
I am. With the way we're playing and the signings we've made, I mean, I think we're only going to get better as the season goes on. And a lot of people are saying to me we could challenge for the title. With Liverpool's injuries and City not playing that well that recently, we're definitely up there. We can definitely compete for the league title. As well as we have Pulisic to still come back from injury. We have Havertz to come back from isolation. So, I mean, it's a really, really strong squad, and definitely 100% we can definitely compete for the title.
What would you say has been the difference so far between Chelsea as a squad, maybe as a club? What's been the difference between last season and this season so far for you?
Strength and depth. The strength and depth is immense. We've bought well. I think Lampard identified what was wrong with the team. So left back, goalkeeper, Alonso and Emerson were not the answer last year. And then obviously with Kepa this year, lost his confidence. And he went down and bought Mendy, and it's probably been one of our best signings. As well as the other additions as well with Werner, Havertz. They can play numerous positions as well. Werner can play on the left, he can play on the right, he can play through in the middle. Havertz can play as a 6, an 8, a 10. He can play up front. Just proper versatility everywhere. So, but then it's also the strength and depth. So if somebody gets injured, you can also bring a very strong player in to replace them.
Yeah, but it certainly helps you. It certainly helps you. Who would you say has been the standout signing for you, in your opinion?
Well, I'd say over the last couple of weeks, Ziyech and Werner. Ziyech against Sheffield United recently, he was immense, absolutely immense. The balls that he plays in, he just gets so much whip on it, and it literally just drops right in front of the Chelsea player. Like, it's phenomenal how he does it.
It's certainly nice to watch, that's for certain. I want to bring in Jonny as well. Jonny, have you had a chance to see much of Chelsea this season? I mean, obviously with some of the games that were on TV, the Premier League is a lot more televised than the Championship in terms of the free games that's now reappeared on our screens. Have you managed to see them at all?
I have. I've caught them a few times. Obviously, I've been impressed with the way they played. As hard as that is to say for someone like me being a QPR fan, it's hard to deny the job that Lampard has done. I mean, I think personally, given he went straight into Derby and obviously got to the playoff final, everything, and then for him to go from that to the big job for him, which is Chelsea, and to perform as he has been quite impressive. He's had his critics this season included by some of the Chelsea fans to the way that they performed in some of the games defensively. I think which has been a bit of an issue for him. But it's, they have been impressive. As Marc said, Ziyech and Werner have started to come in. Obviously, Ziyech had the issue at the start of the season where he didn't play as much, and Werner had a bit of a slow start where he didn't quite score as many goals as you would have expected him to. They're now both obviously coming in. Kai Havertz as well, another one, absolutely, wonder kid, arguably Germany's best midfielder. And you've got at the moment, and you've got, I think, the attacking options they've got is lead to a team that should really be winning the Premier League. And Marc is right, obviously, with Liverpool's injuries and City, and obviously United have fallen well off the boil. Arsenal aren't really anywhere near. It sort of led to a bit of a free for all at the top of the league at the start of the season. Obviously Leicester have been playing out their skins, and Tottenham, as you know, are top of the table at the moment. But yeah, I think Chelsea are definitely good odds to win the league this season. They have been quite impressive.
Yeah, it's certainly an open one, isn't it, this year? And that's something we'll come on to discuss. But yeah, I mean, Marc, in terms of Frank Lampard, are you very much a supporter of his in terms of what he's done for Chelsea, him as a coach, as a manager? Do you think he's a good manager and the right one for Chelsea?
100%. He just needs to be given time. I said it last year when we went, maybe some games we should have won that we lost. I can remember vaguely, I think Bournemouth we lost, Newcastle we lost. And I think Lampard has identified how to break down teams that maybe, like Newcastle yesterday, they sat back behind the ball, 10 men behind the ball. And he's brought in people like Ziyech, Werner, that creativity to break down teams like that. So we weren't able to break them down last year, and now we can. So he's identified the problem and he's fixed it. As I said last year to so many people, he just needs to be given time. And I think now you're starting to see what he wants to do at Chelsea, what he came in to do at Chelsea.
In terms of that as well, you've highlighted a really good sort of characteristic that he has as a coach and as a manager, and many good coaches should have it, is that reflection and learning from mistakes or learning from lessons that you had in previous seasons. Is there any other qualities that you really like in him as a coach?
Yeah, one of them would be, well, compared to Maurizio Sarri was very stubborn in a way. He would stay with the same tactic, same players. He would take off the same players at the same time. Whereas Lampard is different. He can change things. If something's not working, he'll change it. He'll change the formation. He'll change players. If we're going for a goal, he'll push players up. Or if we're defending, he'll put players back. He'll always change things. He's open to change, rather than Sarri, who's just stubborn and he wouldn't change things. So yeah, Lampard, he's open to change if it's not working.
I actually felt a little bit bad for Sarri in the sense that for what he achieved that season, that the last season he was in charge for.
Yeah.
I agree that he wasn't the best manager going forward. Obviously, you want a bit more. Like you said, you want someone who's going to change things. But then, given he won the Europa League, see with that win over Arsenal, and he'd and finished third in the Premier League, and you've got to think that's given how top class Man City and Liverpool were that year. You kind of got to think that was a really good season for Chelsea.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. Lampard needs time, and it could have been so easy for Abramovich to say, no, that's it. I don't have time for this anymore. I don't want to do it. I'm going to find someone else. Like, I don't know, try and get Mourinho back or Nagelsmann or someone like that, which he's definitely done over the years. Not really given managers that much time, but credit to him for giving Lampard the resources and the time that he needed to turn Chelsea into a world class team again.
Yeah, that's one thing I always feared though, even through the end of last season and then going into this season, would Abramovich actually give him time and would he give him what he wants?
Yeah,
And yeah, he has. He's given Lampard exactly what he wants. So he obviously believes in Lampard and believes in his system as well. Um, I'm always looking at videos, researching videos on how Lampard plays, the style of play, things like that. And it is fascinating. It's so fascinating on how he plays, like how he wants to play.
How
yeah.
would you sum it up? How would you sum up his style to anyone? You know, if an alien arrived on this planet today and has never seen a Frank Lampard side play, what would you say is the characteristics of it?
It's high press, possession football, win the ball back up high, and I suppose in a way, counter attack. So attack quickly, get forward quickly. What I saw in one of the videos was he all over the pitch. He always has triangles. So it's everywhere you look at a player, there's always triangles everywhere. So obviously there's always movement, always triangles there. So there's always one or two options always beside the player on the ball. Do you know what I mean? So possession style tactic.
Yeah, Mark, you obviously pre podcast you was telling us about you was doing some coaching. Obviously, I know as a coach, and I'm sure you do as well, that importance of having triangles and free players or free options available to you.
Yeah.
Why is that for anyone listening in who maybe doesn't have that coaching background?
For
Why is
me,
that
like
important?
I love possession football. I love keeping the ball, keeping it simple, and having them triangles for the player on the ball. It gives you more options. Gives you way like so you're on the ball and you're at the top of the triangle and you have two players at the bottom of the triangle. You always have them two options there. So I suppose it's a way of making the right decision which one to give it to. Um, One of them could be marked, one of them could be free, one of them could be in a better position to go forwards. It just depends. So yeah, no, I always try to encourage it in my own team as well. So I've actually recently just got my my first coaching badge over here. So
Brilliant, well done.
so I'm delighted now. I have a session planned ready to go for Tuesday, the 1st of December. So good to go, pass and move type of drill.
There we go. Frank Lampard, new protege coming through, I think. There we go. I love it. I love it, Mark. Jonny, I want to bring you in terms of Chelsea and just their expectations. For you, as an outsider, and obviously a slight connection in terms of London, a London-based supporter, but you know, as an outsider, where do you think realistically Chelsea should finish this season? What is an okay season for Chelsea? And then obviously, what do you think is a really good season and realistic for them?
Well, I think obviously first priority for that would be finishing in the top four, like it would be every season for a club that size. You want to be getting that Champions League qualification. I feel, however, though, that's something that obviously previous managers like I just mentioned, Barry managed to do, and obviously get a trophy while he was at it as well. Yeah, I mean, obviously a title push is essential, really. I think as much as a manager like Lampard time, you unfortunately you do sort of measure success by the trophies that you're bringing in. Because you look at teams like Tottenham, for example, they've been they've played some amazing football over the last 5 years, but they still haven't got a trophy to go with it. So I'd say definitely at least probably top three, top two, and maybe an FA Cup or something, and a good run of the Champions League. I think would be a good season for them.
Okay, brilliant. And let's bring in Mark then. Mark, what is a sort of satisfactory season, a sort of an okay season for you in terms of your expectations? And then what is a really good season for you as a Chelsea fan?
Top three and a trophy. So whether it's the League Cup or an FA Cup or whatever, Yeah, I'd be happy with that. But I mean, as I said earlier, with Liverpool's injuries and City not playing well, I just think we can definitely push for it. Definitely go for it. Go for the Premiership title. I think next
Yeah,
week's game against Tottenham will defy where Chelsea are as a team. Obviously with Spurs playing so well, that'll kind of you'll be able to see after that game where we are, and if we can challenge for the title.
brilliant. You brought on a really good point there, and that'll be a great game in particular. Spurs. I just want to touch on that very, very quickly, but Jonny, Marc, you guys again, we're on neutral kind of ground here, but how and why is Spurs doing so well at the moment? What would you put it down to? Marc, do you want to kick us off with this one?
I'd say personally, I think it's Mourinho. They have a good squad in there, and I suppose last season, the season before, they had injuries. They had a lot of injuries. They haven't got as many injuries anymore. They have Son and Kane fully fit. Son is on form as well. And Harry Kane was sensational yesterday, absolutely sensational. I think with Bale as well, you have Bale, and there's so many options going forward for them. Bale, Lucas Moura, Son, Kane. They got another guy off Benfica as well. I haven't seen much from him though. Carlos Vinicius, I think is his name. So a little bit of depth in there as well going forward.
Yeah, depth is definitely the key word of this podcast. But yeah, it's crazy to think that yesterday when they played Man City, I know they were looking to bring on Bale, but Bale didn't even feature,
No.
which is remarkable. And yeah, Jonny, I don't know, did you get to see that game at all, Jonny?
I did, yeah. I did watch it.
What did you make of that game?
I thought it was classic Mourinho. I think if you were to type that in on YouTube, that's what you find. I mean, it wasn't passing the bus. It was he absolutely brought the best out of every single one of those players. While I thought Spurs were outstanding under Pochettino, it's not really a quality they had. It was being able to soak up pressure, defend as a team. You've got Harry Kane playing at centre back and Son at right back for most of the game, and you've got players like Sissoko who have been so heavily panned by critics because he's been of some awful performances. But yes, it was one of the best performances I've ever seen from Sissoko. He was just all over the park, closing down every single one of those players, and you've got to give, it was a performance of champions, really. I'm not saying that they're going to win the league. I'm saying they're definitely going to be up there. But it was outstanding, and City didn't really have an answer. And I think, alluded to what Marc just said, they have a lot of options up front. I think the only thing I'm concerned about with Spurs is their options at the back. Obviously, Alderweireld looks like he's got a bit of a long-term injury yesterday, which is why Bale didn't come on. They brought Joe Rodon on in Alderweireld's place, which didn't obviously leave room for Bale to be on the pitch. So, yeah, I do worry a little bit. With the international break, I think it's taken a lot out of a lot of the players, but Spurs don't have as big a squad as your Man Cities or Liverpool or whatever. So I think, yeah, they do have a lot of depth, especially midfield up top, but a little bit thin at the back. But yeah, really, really good performance. Thoroughly deserved to 2-0 win. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and Marc, I mean, Mourinho gets a lot of stick for supposedly parking a bus. I mean, would you define yesterday's performance as parking the bus, or was it soaking up pressure? What would you define it as?
I'd say, well, I wouldn't say parking the bus. Did he really? No. I don't know. Maybe just soaking up the pressure, maybe a little bit. I suppose letting City come on to them and then just winning the ball up high, maybe similar to Lampard, just trying to win the ball as quick as possible, get forward quick as possible. Counter-attacking football.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about, you mentioned about Kane. Very quickly, let's have a quick chat about him because, what a player he's turned into. certainly this season. Marc, what's impressed you about Harry Kane?
He didn't score yesterday, but his overall game was just incredible. Hold up play mainly, bringing other players into play. He knows he has players like Son, Lucas Moura around him. Lo Celso late on as well. He came on and scored. But yeah, just his overall game was much better. Even though he's not scoring goals. Kind of similar to Werner, what Werner done yesterday. Werner tried to score as much as he could yesterday, but also trying to provide for others as well.
Yeah, it's the quality of a good striker, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jonny, what would you say stood out for you in terms of Harry Kane at the moment? What's impressed you?
Yeah, I mean, he's not quite getting the goals, I think, at the moment. I think this season with Mourinho's tactics has been more about his partnership with Son. I mean, they've been virtually telepathic. I cast my mind back to that game away to Southampton where Son scored 4 and Kane assisted all of them, and it's brought a new side out to him. Like yesterday, as Marc said, he didn't score, but yeah, he was sensational. He was all over the pitch, closing down, and he has that ability to hold up play, make the assist when he needs to. He's not just a poacher, which he probably would have been called a couple of years ago anymore. He's got a different side, and I think that's something that not only he, but Tottenham as a team needed. Just that, bit more of a contribution in the middle of the park, put the pressure on the back four, allow more players forward, and I think it definitely worked, especially yesterday. I mean, it was similar to what Leicester did at Man City. They sort of soaked up the pressure, hitting them on the break. Obviously, Leicester got a bit more pace, but yeah, I think Harry Kane's got a really important role to play in that system, and it worked a treat yesterday. So, yeah.
Yeah, and moving this on, again, the key word that's sort of come up a lot in this podcast so far is squad depth, and the quality that's there. A team that's really sort of having a challenge at the top that's really facing this is Liverpool and their countless number of injuries at the moment. So obviously they're playing Leicester later today at the time of recording. Obviously, you listening in, you're going to be already wiser and already in the know as to how that game went. But I really want to start off with you, Jonny, and just find out your thoughts in terms of Liverpool's injury crisis. What would you put it down to, and what can they do?
I don't know really. I think obviously last season when they won the title at Atlanta, they had a lot of luck with injuries. They didn't have the deepest squad, to be honest. You look at the squad like Man City had last season, where you've got at least 2 starting 11s, which would beat most teams in the Premier League. Liverpool didn't really have any major injuries last year until Jordan Henderson towards the end, but by that point they were already 25 points clear, so it didn't really make a difference. But obviously you've got to be able to deal with injuries as and when they come, and they have had a lot of bad luck obviously this season, losing Van Dijk and Matip, and then Gomez, and I think Reece Williams picked up an injury for the under-21, which is just awful luck really as far as that's concerned. Obviously Joe Gomez picked up the injury as well for England. I think a lot of the injuries that are coming through now are to do with fatigue and the, well, quite frankly, ridiculous international breaks that have been put in place. You've got 3 in 3 months with the Nations League, which I'm actually a big fan of, and a seemingly pointless friendly before. International breaks used to just be the 2 games and you rotate the teams, but there's no need to have 3 games. Like Scotland, for example, had that playoff in Serbia, for the Euros, and then had 2 away games against Slovakia and Israel in competitive internationals. I think a lot of the entire Liverpool squad pretty much play for an international team, and I think a lot of it you got to put down to that. Van Dijk's injury, of course, was a horrible tackle by Jordan Pickford, which should have been punished really, but it wasn't. But yeah, I think it's down to a lot of it's down to bad luck, but I think it's fatigue as well. But as I said, you've got to deal with injuries
It's certainly a test for him. Yeah, it certainly is a test. You mentioned about the international break, and we'll come on to that. I think that is definitely a topic of discussion. But Mark, what would you how would you sum up Liverpool's injury crisis, and would you put it down to luck as well, or is there any other factors that you'd put it down to?
I'd say probably luck. I suppose they did so well last year with rarely any injuries, so maybe now this year it's changed their luck a little bit. But they still have Diego Jota is playing well, so I mean I'm hoping Leicester win today. But no, they still have Jota, they still have Mane as well, but they still have some still strong players in there. But without Van Dijk and Salah and the rest, you know yourselves, like it's still not the Liverpool we saw last year.
Yeah, and is there anything they can do to kind of address that? I know I saw somewhere that Jurgen Klopp or Liverpool were trying to make a emergency deal outside of the window. Is there anything they could do? Could they bleed in some of the youngsters and just?
If I was in that situation, I'd bleed in the youngsters. I suppose going back to, I know I'm probably going on about Chelsea again, but I'm a big fan of Chelsea, obviously now. But
Nothing wrong with that.
Lampard done it last year in a way. Like, he had a transfer ban; he couldn't bring in anybody, and he had no choice but to bring in the youngsters. So I mean, if they're good enough, definitely bring them in. Definitely give them a chance. And what about Harvey Elliott? Harvey Elliott could be an option on the right-hand side, left-hand side possibly.
Yeah.
Give him a shot. Give him a chance.
Yeah, he's at Blackburn now, I think, isn't he, on loan? And he's been quite impressive. They played us.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Big 3-1, and I didn't watch the game because of I follow issues, but from what I saw from the highlights, he was pretty much running the show down our right-hand side. And obviously, the age he's at that sort of level is very impressive. I think it also shows the massive benefits, really, of loaning your youngsters at the highest level to the Championship, because it's still an outstandingly high level of football.
Yeah.
Compared to other European leagues. I completely agree. He's definitely an option for Liverpool, and I think they've got plenty of them. But I think it's time now for them to start, especially with the defensive issues they've got, start bringing in these youngsters and seeing how they go.
Let's talk very quickly about the international. Just your views about that international break. For me, my views. I know, Jonny, you've kind of given yours. I'm probably a lot more aligned to what you've just said in terms of the Nations League is actually a good change, in my opinion. I think it is a good change. However, I don't actually think it was that relevant or that important or necessary during the recent international breaks because of COVID. So, a discussion I had with my friends and other people up here is, could that not have been delayed, or could that not have been pushed back? Like, is that really that important compared to obviously the playoffs that are really, really important? And then obviously the second priority technically should be the first, but everyone's safety. I think a little bit unnecessary. As we've seen, players have come back. I think Premier League players, there's been 13 players or something, 13 players and staff who've got COVID. So you can't deny that it's not had an effect on the virus spreading. That's my view anyway. Marc in a minute. Marc's just going to pop out for a second, which is fine. Jonny, anything else you want to add in terms of the international breaks? Like, Could they have done anything different? Could they have maybe just restricted it to the playoffs and cancelled friendlies? Or, I mean, I've seen obviously England's friendlies have been home nation games pretty much. So, could that have been the approach?
I think so. I mean, like I said before, and obviously you agreed that I think the Nations League is good. Obviously, it's provided teams like North Macedonia who qualified and see Scotland who may not have if there was no Nations League to get to the Euros. And but obviously with the Euros being postponed to next year and with COVID and the delayed start to the season, I think I just think it should have been delayed. The only issue with that obviously is that the higher you finish in the Nations League is contributes to your coefficients in the FIFA and the UEFA ranking, which obviously gives you more of a chance to get a playoff for the World Cup in 2022. Like Wales, for example, Wales won their League B group and now obviously in League A, and will most likely have a playoff for the World Cup. So, but at the moment with the way things are, it's too much really. After, for example, in the Championship, including yesterday's games, there's 9 games in 28 days for the league between now and the run-up to Christmas. It's a lot of football to play, especially if you're playing every game for your club and your country. That's why these injuries keep going through. And again, and not only that, it's why there's been so many positive COVID tests in the Premier League, because they're always travelling. I think Son had to isolate in South Korea because one of his teammates got it. Obviously, Mo Salah's tested positive twice. I think it was an unnecessary risk to put the players at, and obviously it affects it's sort of like a snowball effect because it affects everything else as well.
Yeah, there's so much going on in that sense. So yeah, definitely agree with you. I believe Marc is back. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So Marc, I just want to get your thoughts very quickly on the international break. Is it, or should it have gone ahead? And do you think it's worthwhile?
I'm not a big fan of the international break now, to be honest, because I mean you could have players who go away and then they come back injured, come back with COVID-19 as well. They could test positive for that, so I'm not a big fan of it.
No, understandable. Okay, let's talk. Let's talk about the EFL and what they've done in terms of the sub ruling. And this kind of ties in quite nicely with the injuries aspect. So, Jonny, as someone a little bit closer, have you been following the EFL's 5 substitute ruling change?
Yeah, I obviously the news was broken last week. I think it obviously came into effect on Friday night when Coventry played Birmingham. I think it allows for more rotation, less chances of players getting injured because you've got the extra 2 subs that you can give a couple of more players a break. I think we used 4 yesterday against Watford. But I think the issue comes, and I think it's something Neil Warnock alluded to before the Norwich game, that teams like Norwich with a bigger squad and like Bournemouth and teams further towards the top with a bit more money and bigger squads, it sort of helps them. And I think that's why Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola alluded to that before bringing that back to the Premier League. It's easy for people like Guardiola to say because he does have a bigger squad to play with, as opposed to teams like Birmingham and Sheffield United, no disrespect intended to them, with much smaller squads and much less money to play with. I think it's a good idea of the Championship, given the amount of games that you've got to play. Obviously 46, and it's very cramped. It's a very cramped schedule this season. The Premier League, I'm not quite sure it would work that well, to be honest.
Yeah, it's certainly an odd one as to whether it would work in the Premier League. I as a Norwich fan, as someone who's experienced both sides of it in the Premier League, probably being disadvantaged in the Championship probably having that advantage. I think it definitely rewards those with a stronger squad depth. Marc, just want to get your thoughts on this. I know you've got to shoot off soon, so thank you for letting me know. But just your thoughts on squad depth.
Massively important.
With the 5 subs. Sorry, I should have said
the
that.
5 subs. I'm for it. I'm all for it. Mainly due to if there was an injury or two in a particular game, somebody was sent off. At least you have the 5 subs there, ready to go. So just more depth in a way that as well the bigger teams, if they want to bring on a young prospect as well who's looking good, they want to slowly bring him into the squad. Definitely the 5 subs is good for that.
Yeah, and it certainly helps. You're a wonder kid tracker in that sense. You love a wonder kid.
Yeah.
On FM, I'm sure you'd really appreciate having 5 subs at your disposal and probably giving that extra space to a wonder kid to try and out. Surely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Especially it would help massively on Football Manager as well. So.
It certainly would. Jonny, you mentioned it earlier, VAR at Championship level. Is that something you want to see introduced?
At the moment, with the way it currently is, obviously we've seen controversy upon controversy in the Premier League. I wouldn't like it in the Championship. I'm actually quite thankful we don't. Obviously, that might sound strange to any of the listeners and to you two, given what I was saying about the penalty decision that wasn't awarded to QPR yesterday. But the solution really is better refereeing, and it has to be. I mean, VAR has worked in certain aspects in the Premier League, but when you look at incidents like in the Man United game yesterday with the West Brom penalty that was given by the man who was taken off VAR for the Liverpool Leicester game today, David Coote. He became the referee, which doesn't make any sense. Awarded the penalty despite there being very clear contact on the West Brom player, and then goes over to the screen and changes his mind on his own decision. And then they go up the other end and award Man United a penalty, tells them to retake it because the keeper, fair enough, was off the line. I just think and especially with the handball rule and the offside, I mean, it's just we can sit here for hours and talk about it. And obviously, we've got a bit of time restraints. It's something that the Championship doesn't need. It's a very fast, free-flowing league with a very physical league, and you can't have the game being stopped and delayed for minutes on end because we're waiting on a decision. So I think the standard of refereeing needs to improve, but I don't think VAR is the answer in the Football League.
Okay, well, we'll wait and see what the answer is. Please let us know in the comment section if you guys have any, who are listening in, have any ideas or any suggestions what that answer might be. I'm wary of time because I know Marc's got to shoot off. So we're going to wrap it up here for the end of today's show. So let's start with Marc. Marc, how can anyone listening in follow you on social media?
So I'm big on Twitter. I have a Football Manager Wonder Kids Twitter account, which is FM_WonderKids. I'm nearly at 6,000 followers as we speak. So, and as of Tuesday, the 24th, when FM21, the full release comes out, the content is just going to be bashed out, constant bashed out. So keep an eye out for that if you're a Football Manager fan.
Good. So yeah, if you're a Football Manager fan, please follow Marc. And yeah, you certainly won't be disappointed. I like seeing your posts about the Wonder Kids as well. So it's good seeing those and having that sort of insider knowledge as to who to go and
I also do the articles on Halftime Cuppa as well. So I'm hoping to start that back up again. So halftimecuppa.com.
There you go. Perfect. Always a good read as well. Always a good read. Thank you very much for your time, Marc. Appreciate it.
No problem. See you later, lads. Thank you.
See you later, Marc. And just bringing in, obviously, Jonny. Jonny, thank you for your time again today. Jonny, how can anyone listening follow you on the show?
I'm not massively active on things like Instagram. I am relatively active on Twitter at Jonny Naidoo. That's JONNYNAIDOO. Tweet relatively often about QPR and any matches that I'm watching. So yeah, and I will be trying to get an article out on halftimecupper.com before the end of lockdown. So yeah, if you guys can give that a read, that'd be fantastic.
Brilliant. Yeah, please do. Please go and check that out. Jonny's pieces. It's been a while, but they're always they're like London buses. They come in come every so often, but they're always a pleasure to read and ride. So yeah, please go and check them out. And of course, you can follow Halftime Cuppa on Twitter using our handle at halftime_cuppa. My personal account is at DannyCook1996. Like Jonny, my tweets will be probably more so championship based. So if you're an EFL fan, you may want to follow us too. Premier League fan, probably go and follow Marc. But yeah, we cover a wide range of things here at Halftime Cuppa. And as mentioned at the start of the show, all the previous episodes are available for you to catch up on Spotify, iTunes, and on our website, halftimecuppa.com. For Spotify and iTunes, and obviously all other podcast providers, just type in Halftime Cuppa and you should find us on there. We should be one of the first ones that comes up. And okay, thank you very much to our panelists. Obviously, Marc's disappeared, but thank you very much, Jonny. Appreciate your time as always. It's been great having you on.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Until next time, stay safe, everyone. Hope to bring you more of these podcasts soon. So enjoy your rest of your day. Thank you very much. Goodbye.